various lands from which we meet. Here in North Sydney, I'm on the land of the Camaragal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders and leaders past, present, and those emerging, and acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to life in our regions and communities. This event today, as the year is coming to a close gradually, it's an opportunity for us to show you the difference your support has made over the past year. We're so glad so many of you could join us this afternoon. We've had a really great response, and I'd like to offer our heartfelt gratitude for your unwavering commitment to the ongoing work of Mary MacKillop today throughout what has been a more hopeful year. By way of housekeeping, please be assured that you cannot be seen or heard by today's hosts or any of the guests joining us. If you do have any issues, please use the Q&A button, which you'll find at the bottom of your screen. You can also use that button if you'd like to ask a question at the end of the session. We would love to receive some questions, and we'll do our best to answer them in this time together. We also have a few supporters joining us by phone, so we will do our very best to make sure this session is easy to follow, even without any video. This afternoon, you'll be hearing from our chair, Kieran Gleeson, some of our leadership team, including the International Programs Group Leader, Tessa Henwood-Mitchell, our Australian Programs Group Leader, Maria Attard, and also from Sister Claire Conaglan, who is a member of the Josephite Congregational Leadership Team. Each will be speaking about the highlight of their year. We're excited about sharing these highlights because this year, for the first time in 2 years, we've been able to visit our programs in action in Australia and overseas. I'll then wrap things up with an overview of challenges and achievements of our work, and to thank you for our generous support throughout all of that. So without further ado, I now introduce to you the chair of Mary MacKillop today, the board, Kieran Gleeson, who will give us an overview of the year that has been. Welcome, Kieran.
Thank you, Jane. And it's delightful to be here. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we feel quite humbled and yet privileged to be entrusted by the Sisters of St. Joseph to carry on the legacy of St. Mary MacKillop and to continue to do the work that she started so many years ago in trying to help the vulnerable and those less fortunate to live the life that they can to their full potential. As Jane indicated, it has been a very tough year. Everybody, I'm sure, has been touched by the cost of living, the price of petrol, interest rates have gone up. We're looking at inflation bounding ahead. And yet, as Jane mentioned, we've been again delighted with the enormous response that we get from many people, many of you who are online today, and many other supporters. So the board sends you all of our gratitude for the continued support that you provide to us. And without that support, we just cannot do the work that we are charged with. For me, one of the highlights of the year and for the board is the wonderful team that we have led by Jane. And Jane and her team continue to display amazing commitment and dedication to the Sisters of St. Joseph cause and the Mary MacKillop cause. And they will shortly go through some of their own highlights that they have led, and they are the people that are doing the hard work. And we are privileged as a board to have such wonderful staff supporting us and supporting you with the donations that you provide. So I'm not going to hold up the proceedings from the team. So I will step back now and let you listen.
Thanks very much, Kieran. We're certainly very fortunate to have an active and interested, engaged, supportive board of directors that really support the work that we do. Well, let's take a little bit of a visual trip amongst some of the highlights of the year. And really, this is just a collection of some snippets I'd like to present to you. So first of all, I know that in the year that it has been, unfortunately for a third year, that word COVID has not gone away, and it has had impacts across the world and certainly in the communities in which we work, some more than others. While our programs have been ongoing, at times we've had to slow down or pivot, that magic word for this period of time, our programs, and we've managed to catch up on all of them and deliver what we intended to do. But it's been really great to be able to extend our assistance where we could, and often to provide that assistance on the back of the programs we were delivering in communities. So as you can see, we were able to distribute nearly 10,000 COVID-19 hygiene kits amongst communities, and we added training components on prevention and health management where we were already conducting training programs. So for example, in Timor-Leste, teachers and parents who were part of our training programs also received this added dimension of health training, and that education and awareness was, of course, really important in preventing this illness from passing on even more. Back here in Australia, we continued our First Nations scholarships, which have been running for many years now. 30 students received help for their university and their TAFE courses. And it was really exciting that this year that 5 students finished their degrees amongst our general scholarship program. They celebrated their graduation from nursing degrees in the case of 2 students. 1 completed a degree in primary education. 2 students completed their degrees with honours components, 1 in psychological science and the other in general science. Of those 5 students, they were all female. And then with our newer partnership with James Cook University, we had 3 students graduating, 1 from a Bachelor of Occupational Therapy, 1 from Nursing Science, and 1 a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in Criminology and Sociology. So it's a really exciting time to be able to celebrate with those students, many of whom are from remote communities and who really required this support to get them through the additional demands they have to complete a university degree. Also here in Australia, in fact, in Western New South Wales, our no interest loans program, it grew from strength to strength. Over 600 loans were provided to people who may have otherwise been exploited by loan sharks, frankly, and who may have found themselves in that trap of having their already vulnerable financial situation worsened by ridiculously high interest rates that they'd be locked into. We provided loans for vehicles, and they make up a significant number of these loans. We started a new vehicle no interest loan program with the help of Good Shepherd, and that it's important to know that car purchases is really important for people who are living in regional areas. It's important because they need that vehicle to both find and sustain their employment. You can see Julie, one of our staff, in the photo on the left. Julie, I've seen her in action in the office. She just goes the extra mile. Not only is she there doing the paperwork associated with administering the loan and making sure that the person who is applying for this loan will be able to be successful in repaying those small repayments, but she also provides so much wraparound support. Just I've seen her advocating for people where they have found themselves with really crazy financial obligations, ringing up some of those loan providers and advocating on behalf of that client to end what are unfair and unjust demands placed upon them in their vulnerable situation. It's a great program. Then looking at women's livelihoods, well, first I'll talk about our, just here at home, our Reconciliation Action Plan. This year we have drafted our Reflection Wrap, as we call it, and that's a really important part of our work. We know that if we are working with Aboriginal communities, we really need to stop and reflect ourselves here as a team around what that means, around our own learning, and around supportive engagements of solid steps in solidarity that we can make. So that's been a great development. Moving on now to women's livelihoods, I think will be our next slide there. Yes, it is. And what I found this year, and one of the really uplifting parts of our work for me personally, has been this emerging theme that we have in many countries, this women's leadership work in different countries, where we're building the leadership and livelihood skills of women, young and older women. And we know that when we are working with women, teaching them some basic business principles, extending their knowledge around community strengthening and support, we really see that these women are able to step up and start small businesses, improve their family food basket. This has ongoing benefits for their kids' education, their housing situation, and so on. That's been a really wonderful step, and you might hear a little bit more about that from some of our other presenters today. You can see one of our vanilla farmers there up in East Timor. Again, a very exciting program happening sort of there in the background, but we have a lot of vanilla farmers. We're providing that little bit of technical support and research too, and we really hope vanilla can take off from East Timor as a very important export trade. But in the meantime, you may recall back in April seeing some of the terrible images of flooding, particularly around Dili. That natural disaster really hit home. Some of our own team were impacted by this. Our Timorese staff, a couple of them lost their homes, several of them lost many of their household goods and had significant damage. But despite that, they turned up. They were there to help their neighbours, the affected communities, and we managed to keep going with our programs. But we know very well that these disasters in our neighbourhood, in our backyard, are ongoing. And as a result, this year, we did some assessment work, and we've worked out how we can establish disaster risk reduction programming across all of our programs in Fiji, in Timor, in Peru, because we know that by preparing communities for these events, which unfortunately we know are inevitable now, that we really are putting ourselves and communities on the front foot in being able to prevent, being able to respond, very importantly. And so that work is now very much a theme across all of our programs, and you'll see us talking about that a lot more, building it into the programs we do. It's a smart move. Then let's move to Peru, which you'll be hearing more about. As you probably know, Peru was one of the countries most severely impacted by COVID-19, a small country, but with one of the highest death rates from the pandemic. While some of our program work was forced to slow down over this time of the pandemic, we still managed to continue the programs, and alongside them to provide small grants where we supported families to get through this most difficult of periods. And that was support that was very much appreciated by those families. Moving on now to Fiji, I highlight again, personally for me, because I did manage to visit for the first time and meet our partner organisations there, meet those teams, and also visit the programs in action. And actually in that left-hand photograph there, you'll see me in the back row with Tessa, our programs manager, and where we're there in a remote village in Fiji. That group of women, some of the women in that photo had just completed a 3-year leadership program that we conducted with our local partner organisation. And many of them are now running their own businesses as a result of that. As a result of them, the women being able to improve livelihoods for their families, they've really gained more respect in their community. Their standing in the community has grown, and that is really important for Fijian women. Others in that group are new members, and they are signed up and have commenced undertaking the course going forward for the next couple of years. And they will be mentored by the graduates of the program. So the work rolls on and has an impact that way. This group of women were exceptionally inspiring. They stood up in front of their whole village group or villages in the area and were able to share the impact that the course had for them as an individual, as a group, to tell us about what they'd gained, to tell us about their new aspirations and their very new practical steps they had commenced there. It was an extraordinary uplifting day, and that wasn't just because of the carver ceremony that they held first up to thank us for our involvement in it, and in turn to thank you as the supporters of that program. Similarly, we visited the early childhood programs there run by Child Benefit in Fiji in the Suva region, and we were able to see those children in action in their learning group, which was really wonderful. Well, enough from me, and that's a little bit of a global summary, a very fast-moving one, I know, but I'd like to introduce you now to Maria Attard. I'm pleased to introduce her as the Australian Programs Group Leader here at Mary MacKillop today. And Maria, please share with us one of your highlights.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria Attard. I'm the Australian Programs Group Leader. In May this year, we were invited by the Sisters of St. Joseph to visit the Kimberley, to visit particularly Sister Alma, Sister Teresa and Sister Julianne. And we were asked to visit to explore opportunities to the future of the Josephite presence, but also to explore opportunities where Mary MacKillop today can continue the Josephite legacy. Sister Claire, who you will see later on in the webinar, informed us that the Josephites have actually been in the community for at least since 1963. So that's 60 years. It's quite amazing. What really stood out for me is that yet again, where the sisters have seen a need and planted seeds, like just to witness yet again how that's flourished. It's quite incredible. So, for example, there is a single tree that here we go, there it is. There is a single tree, and so about 40 years ago, that's where a school started, just under this tree. But now, in the same block, there is this dynamic school environment that's really well resourced, and it has the most committed, passionate, really high expertise teachers dedicated to the school. It's really quite extraordinary. So the tree has now become a legacy, and you know, there's Josephite schools all across the Kimberley. What's really striking about the Josephite education system as well is where possible, the lessons are taught in both local and Aboriginal language and English. There is a real focus for authentic connection that is culturally safe and trauma-informed. And in most of the schools, there's a sign that says, "We connect before we correct. We see you, we hear you, and we are with you." So that's just a little snippet of the Josephite legacy that continues today. And I'd like to introduce my colleague, Tessa, who is the International Programs Group Leader.
Thank you so much, Maria. So as Maria said, I'm have the privilege to be the International Programs Group Leader here at Mary MacKillop today. So I get the wonderful job of being able to oversee all the work we're doing in Timor-Leste, in Fiji, in Papua New Guinea, and in Peru. So for us at Mary MacKillop today, this year, when we were asked to sort of share our highlights with you all today, it's been a pretty amazing year in being able to reconnect with our projects in country again for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. And for me, for the first time since joining Mary MacKillop today, as I joined in 2020. So we've finally been able to go visit the countries that we're working in and see the people that we've been working with online for such a long time, and also see the projects that we're doing in the communities we're working in, and really get a sense of the work that we do and of the amazing projects that all of you support us to carry out. So this photo that you're all looking at right now is a photo of myself and program coordinator for Timor-Leste and monitoring, evaluation and learning coordinator. The three of us were able to go and visit our team in Timor-Leste in May this year. And this was the first time for the three of us to be meeting our team in person. We have an incredible team in Timor-Leste of over 45 staff, all local staff, as well as Sister Nola Goodwin, who is the Sister of St. Joseph, who supports the team as a mentor over there. And so for me, it was a huge highlight just to meet our team in person. They are an incredible bunch of people. They are so passionate, they're so committed, and they work so hard to carry out the incredible projects that we do. We also got to visit some of the projects in person as well. We traveled out to some of the communities. This photo that you're looking at now is us visiting the women's group. So as Jane mentioned earlier, we work with a group of women in helping them to develop skills and business skills around being able to set up their own businesses, and also have access to savings and loans. And so really what it really confirmed for me was that the work we do here at Mary MacKillop today in Timor-Leste in this instance really is reaching the margins, in that we go to communities that really are quite far away from, from the cities and the major towns, where we're out in small rural areas where it's difficult to get to physically, in that, they're quite bumpy roads to get to and quite far away. And also just that there's not really much available for the people that live in these communities. And so often Mary MacKillop today is the only organisation working in these communities and supporting the people with the different projects that we're carrying out. So that was a really incredible experience. The next incredible experience, among many others, of course, was a very recent trip to Peru that myself and our program coordinator for Peru went on. We only returned last week, and it was just an incredible opportunity to, again, see the work that we're doing on the ground through our amazing local partner organisations. They work so hard to carry out these projects. As Jane mentioned earlier, COVID was particularly challenging in Peru over these last couple of years. And so our partners were so incredible in how they approached that they carried on these projects. This photo is of some of the women that work, that are involved in our Women's Empowerment Project, working with women involved in politics. The young woman next to me, she was a candidate to become a councillor in the local municipality that she lives in, and she wasn't successful in the election, but she learned so much in the process, and she was so confident in how she explained how her participation in that process and everything she's learned throughout her involvement in the project that our partner run. And all of the women that we spoke to in this project were just so incredibly passionate and so confident in everything that they were telling us and sharing with us. So that was really amazing. Some of them standing up to their husbands for the first times in their lives, which, for some may not sound like a lot, but in Peru, which, there is a real culture of, that not necessarily happening for a lot of women. So that in itself was a huge achievement for a lot of these women. We also visited another project where we work with another, the same local partner actually in delivering different trainings to young women and young people, also in very remote communities. This is a photo of us visiting a class of audiovisual class, so young people learning how to use cameras, how to learn graphic design and develop videos. And these young people, some are single mothers, some haven't completed formal education. So this is an opportunity for a lot of them to potentially access a livelihood again for the first time in their lives. And all of them were so enthusiastic. They were so committed. They showed us all the work that they had learned through their involvement in this project. And it was just so obvious how much they were gaining from gaining this education and being able to then access a livelihood, access work following their involvement in this project. So it really was such an incredible opportunity to be able to see this in person and now get to share that with all of you who support us so much. So thank you for everything that you're supporting us to be able to do. Now, just before I introduce our final speaker, I do want to remind you all that if you do have a question for us today, please place it into the Q&A section that you'll see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure that we try and answer it towards the end of this session. So now I would like to hand over to our final speaker, who is Sister Claire Connellan. We tried to practice her name earlier. I keep mispronouncing it. I'm sorry, Claire. She is part of the congregational leadership team after living for around 16 years in Peru. So I will hand over now to Sister Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa, for that lovely welcome. And thank you, everybody, for being online this afternoon. I actually want to tell you a couple of stories. And one of the stories is not in Peru, but here in Australia. And as Sisters of St. Joseph, we have been developing a RAP plan over a reconciliation action plan over the last 18 months, together with Aboriginal mentors and partners, the sisters, our staff and affiliates. And it's every 6 years we have a chapter where we decide what are our future directions. So the sisters are always looking on as to what are the needs, what's happening. And we got a request from one group of sisters, would the congregation develop a reconciliation action plan? And it's a response to our chapter where we said that we would stand with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to seek, as outlined in the Uluru Statement from the Heart, constitutional reforms to empower our people to take rightful place in our own country, a First Nations voice to Parliament to be enshrined in the Constitution, and a Makarrata Commission to supervise a process of agreement between governments and First Nations, and truth-telling. So it's often summarised as truth-telling, treaty and voice. And in another statement in our chapter, we said, let's learn from our First Peoples of our countries and wholeheartedly support as neighbours their initiatives for recognition, agency and justice. So we gathered a committee, as I said, of our Aboriginal peoples that we knew, and sisters and staff and affiliates, and we have developed the RAP plan. This painting before you is from our artist, Uncle Richard Campbell. And I'd like to quote something that he says. My art is necessary for my survival, physically, mentally and spiritually, but it also feeds my soul. The rainbow serpent meanders across time, space, and through the ancient lands to tell a story that is full of memories. For in this symbol lie all the answers and a path towards reconciling with Australia's First Peoples. The rainbow serpent represents the transformation from shedding the old skin to present the new. Hence, the Sisters of St. Joseph entering into the phase of their intention to learn and to make cultural changes within all Josephite communities and organisations, and to respond to the profound injustices perpetrated against First Nations people. And he remarks, I feel the task before me, and indeed the sisters, can only be encapsulated from one of the many beautiful quotes that represent St. Mary of the Cross McKillop, which I love. Never see a need without doing something about it. So Richard, if you look at the head of the snake on the left of your screen, challenges us to listen and change, and that there be a voice. He also incorporates Mary and Julian, our co-founders, and Father Julian Tennyson Woods. Back in the 1880s, he was writing to the Sydney Morning Herald, and he uses the language of the 1880s, and he says, some adequate provision should be made for the natives, that is to say, which would put them out of reach of hunger. We have no right to leave these people to starvation and death when we have taken their country. So he was very aware of the taker of the country here. So it is heartwarming to know that Mary MacKillop today has also taken up the challenge of forming a reconciliation action plan. And so we hope that the congregation and Mary MacKillop today will continue to strengthen relationships and have the respect and opportunities with our First Nations peoples here in Australia. Another highlight for me was visiting in Bathurst with the other sister, with Sister Louise, who's also on our congregational team, and visiting the NILS program in Bathurst that Jane has already referred to. And we went to the opening. The NILS program has grown so much that they needed to move to bigger premises. And it was wonderful to see the original sisters who started the project and how the project has gone from strength to strength. And Louise and I listened to the passion of the staff and their wonderful involvement with the people who take up the loans. We got some feedback later that the staff said, oh, the sisters have got it. They understand us. And Louise and I think, well, the staff at NILS have got it. They understand the sisters. The last story I want to tell you is about Peru. And last week, I received a message from Anaida, a Peruvian woman that I had not heard from since living in North Sydney. So it's about 3 or 4 years ago. So she told me that she was well and living in the countryside, looking after her avocado trees. This took me back to 2017, and where we had 2 groups of women, about 21 women, in the parish in Lima where I lived and worked, who made crafts for Ethica accessories. And they also went out and taught other women on the hills around the parish. Ethica Accessories said that after 10 years or so, that they would stop trading with us. We had not formed a formal group. And so after those years, the women had decided they never wanted to be formalized in their group. Ethica gave us sufficient time to adapt. And so at the end of the time, we had some money over. And Mary MacKillop today said they didn't want the seeding grant that had been given to us 10 years beforehand from, at that stage, Mary MacKillop International. And we had also made a small profit over those years. And the women had always asked that it be kept for a rainy day. So we decided that the money needed to be distributed amongst all the women, and according to the length of time that they'd been in the projects. And each woman was instructed to use the money for a small project and not just to pay their bills and their accounts and all that. So for example, one woman, she bought a sewing machine. Another one bought bulk items for her little shop that she could have in her house. And Anaida, the woman who I heard from just last week, decided to put the money into growing avocado trees on the land that she had inherited from her father. So I was really delighted to hear from her last week, and her dream is literally growing. So To me, it gives that support that Mary MacKillop today gives to small projects in Peru can have lasting effects, even when Mary MacKillop today is no longer involved. I could tell many more stories about my time in Peru and working with Mary MacKillop today, but there's not much time for that. But I suppose I feel there are just so many people who have benefited from these small projects, and I know they are so grateful, and I have often felt very humbled. And I'd like to finish today by today is the feast of San Martin de Porres, and this wall hanging was made by one of the groups of women, and we gave this wall hanging to a group of German volunteers who were helping out in the parish at one stage, and they had San Martin de Porres as their mentor. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sister Claire. That really gives us a great perspective in terms of Mary MacKillop today's role today as a legacy program that we follow in the footsteps of so many of the works that the sisters themselves have started, are sometimes still present in, and that we continue to do that. And it is very much a discernment process as we go forward as to, as we gain strength, and we are, where in the future we may work. So if anyone has a question, do place that in the Q&A box there. I do have one question here, and that is, what are we looking forward to next year at Mary MacKillop today in the year that is to come? I think, you know, our hearts are full of hope that the situation around particularly the pandemic backdrop will get better for us and for the globe and for the communities with whom we are working, certainly. But as the CEO, I would answer it this way and say that, you know, we are, as an organisation, Mary MacKillop today, 4 years old. Many of our programs, of course, are the work of the foundations who came before us, or the work of Mary MacKillop International, and we continue to grow those programs. But going forward in these next few months, it's an important time for us in that we are looking at our strategic directions, and we're saying, well, we've come this far. We have some very successful programs. We're looking at learning for life that underpins really all the programs we do. And we're looking at education and saying, what will that mean now going forward? What else can we do? What more will we build on? Particularly not in a post-pandemic world, unfortunately, quite yet, but with the new impacts we're seeing, with the fact that we know our regional neighbours are under much more pressure around climate change, around the emergencies and natural disasters that are continuing to happen. So we'll be looking at all of that. And so, you know, while we thank you for your support and your financial support and ask for that ongoing, we also ask for your prayer support, your solidarity support as we make those decisions and as we dream more about what might be. We look forward next year to our new program cycles that are commencing. Usually our programs work in 3-year cycles because we know that 3 years gives us that time to really start off with a community, have the different milestones and stepping stones inbuilt, learn as we go and reflect, have a reflective process, and to really achieve those outcomes that we're looking for over a 3-year period. So we've just reviewed our programs, we've redefined those programs, and we look forward to taking them forward in a new cycle of programs. We look forward to our NILS team who were mentioned in Western New South Wales, who will embark on pilots doing doing some budgeting work with people, not just the provision of those loans, which are all important, but also running workshops for those who are in financially vulnerable situations. And we know that for so many people, we know that is increasing now in our own country. So looking at how we do budgeting work going forward with people. So that's also very important. There's a lot to look forward to across all of our programs, and I know that our programs team would have more specific answers as well. But I am looking at a couple more questions here. A question from Jan around, do we work with Maris Solidarity Australia in Timor-Leste? And we are very aware Maris Solidarity do some work there. It's important to know the different congregational work, such as the Josephites representation of that, the Marists, Edmund Rice and so on. We do regularly talk together about our work. We don't specifically work with Maris Solidarity there in Timor-Leste, but we do make sure in our conversations and catch-ups that what we're doing isn't doubling up on program work that can be done, that we work to our strengths. And we do keep that in discussion with us, which is a really strong collaboration in itself around the Catholic congregational work. So that is important. We do work with other congregations, as you may be aware. Edmund Rice support some of our work, provide us with the financial funding to do some work in East Timor on their behalf, and likewise we support them in other countries. So that's they are important partnerships, and ones that I particularly keep that conversation alive, so that we don't double up. We collaborate when it makes sense to do so, and we support each other as well to really make sure that as many communities as possible can be supported. There's another question there about the museum, the Mary MacKillop Place, the museum here in North Sydney, and when it will be open again. So the work of the sisters of course manage that across the road. And if you jump online to the Sisters of St Joseph website, or Google Mary MacKillop Place, you'll get a list of hours. I understand that they are open for a couple of hours each day at the moment, or during the week, but best to check in with the website because of the pandemic. Those hours have been impacted, and next door the chapel is also open as well, and there are masses happening, but it's always best to jump online and Google for Mary MacKillop Place or the Sisters of St Joseph, and you'll find some links there. Someone has asked, thanks Michelle for a great question there. She's new to this and says, it's great to join today and learn more about Mary MacKillop today. Do you have any fundraising activities which we can support? Well, I'm glad you've asked, Michelle, because as we're coming to the finish of this session, I was going to let you know that as we're approaching Christmas, I know those big retailers have beat us to it when you pop in there, or even for many weeks now, Christmas is everywhere. We too will send you our appeal for Christmas time, and we would very much seek your help for those. I know there are many people who are facing our own financial challenges right now, but as Christmas approaches, we know the needs are there across our program communities, both here in Australia, in preparing for next year's programs, and certainly in our overseas communities. So when you receive those appeal materials, we're particularly going to share with you a focus on Timor-Leste and our programs there. And you will have an opportunity there to respond in kind with those for that appeal program specifically. And of course, don't forget, if it is appropriate, if it is possible for you, our ongoing regular giving program is possible, and the appeals we run throughout the year. Also of interest to you may be that our annual report is about to be published. So very soon you'll be able to access that online through our website at marymacKilloptoday.com.au. You can certainly receive a hard copy of the annual report if you would like to, but in terms of saving paper, we know that lots of people prefer these days to seek these materials online. So you'll be able to read many stories there, see some of the results of our year, and certainly access our financials for the year. So I want to, as we come to a close of this event today, to say, I hope that you found this update both interesting and inspiring. I want to thank you very much on behalf of the team here, on behalf of our partner organisations that work with us, and certainly on behalf of the communities who we visited and who've asked for those thanks to be passed on, for the support you give, for the work you make possible by them in their own communities, from all those who benefit from your dedication and generosity. Thank you for the support you've been able to give us this year. It's very much, you know, that financial support is so extremely important. And at the same time, you know, your thoughts and certainly your prayers for our communities, your prayers for us as we go on the continuing planning and discernment journey, as we make those decisions about where we place that support, how we go about helping those communities. We ask for your prayer support as well in all of that. And I'd particularly very much like to wish you all, even though it's several weeks away now, a very Merry Christmas and a very safe, happy New Year in 2023. I do so as that time approaches us. Thank you all very much for attending today. Thank you for your continuing help to support St. Mary's life-changing work. Have a wonderful afternoon.